Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah if you are new here, and today I'm going to be doing my 34-week pregnancy update. I am turning 34 weeks tomorrow, so just for your reference, if you are comparing your pregnancy to my pregnancy, I'm going to be 34 weeks tomorrow. But I did have my 34-week doctor's appointment. I actually had 2 doctor's appointments this week, so I have a lot to fill you in on. So I believe at my last doctor's appointment, they had said my blood pressure was a little bit high, but they kept reassuring me that I was fine, there was no issues, I didn't have anything to worry about, I needed to just keep doing what I was doing, and every once in a while check my blood pressure, and I should be seen every week instead of every other week, just to make sure that it didn't get out of hand. So I kind of left a little bit confused because I felt like it was a big deal that my blood pressure was going up like that, especially with my history, and I was just like really uneasy about the whole thing, and the doctors just kind of weren't really agreeing with me. So this week I had 2 doctor's appointments. They were both with female doctors, different doctors, but I had not seen them in a while. One of them I hadn't seen for a few weeks, and the other one I had never seen before. So it was really good to get some different perspectives on the current situation, and things have definitely changed. So my doctor's appointment yesterday, I went in, my blood pressure was like 145/85, I think, and they took it at the beginning of my appointment and then like a half hour later, and it was still about the same. So the doctor came in and she had looked at like my history and what my blood pressure was the week before, and she said, looking at that and seeing that you've been over 140 multiple times, just right off of the bat, you are diagnosed with gestational hypertension. And I think it would be considered a mild form of that because my numbers aren't crazy high, but by definition, I am considered to have gestational hypertension. And that just means that I have high blood pressure. There's no issues with protein or any other like blood work to be diagnosed with gestational hypertension. It's just the blood pressure. So she said, like, right off the bat, that's what we're looking at. And actually, when you are diagnosed with gestational hypertension, they don't want you to go past 37 weeks, which I kind of doubted I would make it that far anyway. But to hear that from the doctor, that was like their decision officially now, and I can talk more about that later, but what that means for me is most likely that's gonna be a C-section because it's really hard to induce people. We've had C-sections before because there's a lot of risks involved with a VBAC with induction, and so they could try a few methods, but I'm just not very optimistic that they would work. So in my mind, I kind of just know that it's gonna end in a C-section, and honestly, if I could make it to like the day I turned 37 weeks, that would be awesome, but I have no idea. So let me tell you about the rest of everything that went down. So she gave me that diagnosis and she said, looking at your blood pressure, I think we need to investigate this further because we hadn't done a lot of analysis of my protein and blood work and all of that. So she said, I want to do a 24-hour urine on you. I want you to go up to labor and delivery and do just like a kind of like a really casual NST, non-stress test on the baby. Make sure she looks okay, has a great heart rate and is kicking good. And then they did like a full like lab work, blood work on me. And they also did something that's called, I don't know the exact term for it, but it was like essentially it's like a 24-hour urine, but they can get it like pretty quickly. And I think they just do like a different test on your urine that's like more in depth. I don't know exactly how all of that works, but I think it's like a newer test. So she had all of these things lined up. So I went up to labor and delivery. I was there for about an hour and a half yesterday getting all of these tests done. And a lot of it they got back right away. They said my blood work looked pretty good. There was nothing alarming, nothing out of the ordinary or anything that would suggest that I had preeclampsia or HELLP syndrome. So that is so good to hear because that's like my biggest fear is like my blood work is going crazy, and I wouldn't know because a lot of times it takes a while for it to get pretty bad for you to like feel that your enzymes or your platelets are off. So it was really good to hear that my blood work all looks good. My blood pressure when I got in there, of course, because I was super stressed, was like 155/100, which does not look good. So they put me on my side. They were doing like a full like non-stress test, so I was laying there for a while anyway doing that on my stomach. But they did a bunch of different blood pressures like every 10 minutes. So I think they maybe did 5 or 6 readings while I was there, and it kind of stayed pretty high, 140s, a couple of them. I think then it started to drop, and I know that my last one right before I left was 128/65, which doesn't make a lot of sense because I've been so consistently having high blood pressure, and I feel like when I'm at home it's not very high, and so that kind of confirmed that like when I calm down and just lay there for a while, I can get it to go pretty low in like a normal range. I think I'm getting really worked up and really anxious, and it's not like just being anxious, because I don't think a normal person would have that high of blood pressure like every single time you go to the doctor unless there was like a bigger issue. So I think their diagnosis of gestational hypertension was justified. Like, I'm definitely not disagreeing with that. I just know that some of my numbers are just higher than I think they should be because I'm just so anxious all the time. Going into the doctor, like I just instantly get anxious, and it's like really hard to control. So it's frustrating that I feel like I'm not getting accurate numbers because I just can't like calm myself down. But they released me after everything, and the doctor that was actually on call at labor and delivery said, I don't think you're gonna get preeclampsia. I think you're fine. I think you need to just go back to whatever you were doing. You're doing great. Your blood work looks great. He was looking at that last blood pressure, I think, and he was like, I don't think you have any problems. So I left, and I was like a little bit confused because I just feel like my body's acting differently. And so I honestly cannot believe that everything's fine. But it makes me feel better that my blood work looks good and that my blood pressure did finally settle down. So a little bit confused, but I did have to go in the next day. They made an appointment for me because they wanted to do like a non-stress test in their office. They wanted to recheck my blood pressure. And then the other thing that they decided to do for me, which I'm so grateful for, because I mean, I'm sure there's debate on this, but the shots that they give you, the steroids that help the baby's lungs, I feel like that really helped Dean, my son, because when he was born at 36 weeks, they had given me those shots, I want to say like a week before, and he didn't have to spend a single moment in the NICU. He just did really great right from the start. And so I feel like it really helped him. I don't know if they gave me the same type of steroid shot because they were saying something about they don't like to give it after 34 weeks. But I had it at like 35 weeks last time. So I don't know if it was the exact same thing, but I know that both times it was like to help the baby's lungs. And I know that there's a lot of research that might suggest that that is helpful or not helpful, but for me, I just felt like I wanted that, and I honestly thought it helped my son. So I wanted to do that for my daughter if I came to the point where I thought I was gonna deliver her at 36 weeks earlier, which now it's kind of leaning that way. So she did say, let's do the shots. So yesterday I got one, today I got the other one. That's also why I had to come in for the second appointment today. So I went in, got my shot, did a non-stress test. I did like the full-blown one where you like press the button every time the baby like kicks or something like that. And everything looked awesome. She kicks a ton, so it's so good and like calming to know that she has like no problems at all. We are actually going to do an ultrasound next week, so that would, you know, further clarify that. But in terms of heart rate and kicks and everything, like she's just like doing awesome. So that's really good to hear. But the one thing that the doctor said today that kind of changed things is, I guess they got the results from that test that is kind of like a 24-hour urine. I guess they didn't get it last night, which I thought they got all of the test results, but apparently they didn't. So she said we finally got that test in, and they could like tell a protein level from that test, obviously. that was probably the main reason that they did it. And she said to have preeclampsia, you need to be at a 0.3 or higher, and I was a 0.3. So essentially that technically means that I am diagnosed with preeclampsia this time, officially. And I'm like at the very cusp of it. In terms of blood pressure and protein, I think I'm at like the very like initial cusp of it, but it's enough for them to diagnose me. And I don't think it really changes a lot about how we're gonna move forward, because we're still looking at probably a C-section at 37 weeks. But to know now that I officially have preeclampsia is like both really scary, but at the same time it's like I just felt like it was happening and no one was listening to me. And so it's kind of like nice to just like know, which is weird because it's not a good thing. But at the same time, I always just thought that I was probably gonna have this baby around 36 or 37 weeks anyway. And especially with like my blood pressure starting to go up, I just felt like that was gonna happen. So now that we know I do have preeclampsia, we're starting down that path, and there's a lot of things that could go on between now and 37 weeks. So I technically right now have mild preeclampsia because it's at the very beginning, and my blood work all looks awesome. So that is a really good place to be, because if my blood work starts to look bad, if my protein gets crazy, honestly, I don't know how much protein matters after you're diagnosed with mild, but I know specifically blood pressure and your lab work, like your enzymes and your platelets and everything, if that starts to get out of whack or my blood pressure gets really crazy, then I can be diagnosed with severe preeclampsia. And so if it goes too severe, at this point, the doctor said, since I'm like pretty much at 34 weeks, they would just either induce me or do a C-section. In my case, probably just a C-section because I've had a C-section before. So I pretty much just have to do everything I can to not let it get severe. And then HELLP syndrome is essentially like severe preeclampsia. So that's what I ended up with last time. So hopefully we don't even go there this time, but it's possible because it just changes really quickly on you. I think last time I probably was considered severe like right away because my blood pressures were just really bad, and I know the protein in my urine was really bad. So they probably considered me severe at the beginning, and then it went to HELLP syndrome within about a week. So I'm hoping that I have some time, a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks if I'm lucky. So there's a lot going on, but my schedule for the next couple weeks, they're gonna do a ultrasound next week, and then I'm gonna be seen twice a week, every week for the remainder of the pregnancy to do non-stress tests and check my blood pressures and probably urine and all of that stuff, just to keep a really close eye on it. And I think once a week I'm gonna do blood work, because that is like one of the biggest things that can easily tell us if it's going to severe preeclampsia or HELLP syndrome. So I'm really glad that they are on top of that, because I feel like last time it just kind of happened all of a sudden because they didn't have a close eye on my blood pressure and my protein in my urine, because it was my first pregnancy and I didn't have any history of it, and so I didn't even know to like speak up about it. So this time, since we have such a close eye on it, we're like catching it at the very, very beginning stages. So I can do what I need to do. Although I've been doing a lot even before the doctors told me to, because I just really like knew that it could go down that road. So I was like really keeping an eye on my swelling and trying to just like rest as much as I can. And I feel like that's helped me a lot. Like my swelling is very, very minimal, which is surprising because last pregnancy at this time, I was so swollen I couldn't wear any shoes, and my feet were just always extremely swollen. Whereas now, even if I go do something for 2 hours and come back home, my feet really aren't very swollen at all. It's crazy. And I don't know if it's just from putting them up frequently. I've been drinking a lot of water too, so I think that's helping a lot. But I've just been really like focusing on that, so I need to just continue to focus on that, I guess. Really just keep doing what I'm doing and make sure I'm drinking a lot of water and taking breaks. And hopefully we can just kind of stay where we are for the next couple weeks. So that's everything that's going on. I'm trying to think of like other pregnancy related updates besides all of this craziness, but there's really not a lot else going on. I feel like I'm feeling a lot of like pelvic floor pain now, which seems like it's like getting a lot worse every day, and I didn't really have much with my son, so maybe it's just like a second pregnancy thing. But just like walking, like if I get up in the middle of the night, it's just like all of a sudden like someone dropped like a bowling ball in my stomach, and it's like a lot of pressure and like pain in like my pelvic floor area. So I'm noticing that now, which I feel like wasn't as bad with my last pregnancy. And then in terms of weight gain, I think I'm at about 16 pounds gained so far, so maybe I can stay under that 20-pound mark by the time the baby comes. That would be nice, because in my last pregnancy I think I gained about 35 pounds because it was like all swelling, and I don't have a lot of swelling this time. So hopefully I can keep the weight gain to a minimum, because last time when I had my son, it's like I instantly lost 30 pounds like that day, and I'm not gonna have that this time. So I'm trying to keep an eye on that, but so far it's been like pretty minimal, and I haven't seen any like really dramatic increases over the last few weeks, so that's good. Update on the baby room and the baby name. I'm in the baby room right now, and so like we have some baby things in here, and I actually have her closet pretty well organized and her drawers and everything. All of the baby laundry is done. Almost everything is ready for her. I have my hospital bags packed. I just need to sterilize a few bottles, because I honestly anticipate needing bottles. I'm gonna bring one to the hospital, because last time I was just so hesitant to use a bottle at the beginning, and my son really suffered from not getting enough nutrients, I feel like, the first couple weeks, and it took him forever to get up to his birth weight. And it was just because everyone was telling me, don't use a bottle, don't use a nipple of any kind, you're gonna confuse him if you want to breastfeed. And this time I'm just not dead set on breastfeeding, because if that's not what's best for my daughter, then I'm just gonna feed her some way that I can. So I'm gonna try breastfeeding. If I need to exclusively pump, I will do that. If I need to supplement with formula, I will do that. But I'm prepared to do any of those options. So I need to sterilize some bottles and get those all ready to go. But other than that, I think everything is pretty much ready. I have little stations set up in my house with diapers and pumping supplies and all that kind of stuff. Like, I am pretty much ready. The baby room is not fully decked out because we're going to be moving shortly after she's born, so I'm not trying to like put up tons of things on the walls or make it super fancy. And she's actually going to be using my son's crib that he's still using, so we're kind of debating getting him a toddler bed sometime soon. I just don't know when that's going to happen exactly, but eventually she will get his crib. So there's not even a crib in her room, but we have like all of her supplies and clothes and all that kind of stuff in this room ready for her. In terms of a name, we still don't have a name. And I think we have a name that we keep going back to that makes the most sense. It sounds good with our family's names and with our last name and the middle name that I want to use for her. And I feel like it would fit like how I envision my daughter, but it just doesn't feel like this like awesome name that I'm just in love with. So I just haven't found a name that feels like the perfect name, and it sucks because I need to just come up with a name. Like, I'm gonna have to just pick one pretty soon here, but it's just, with my son, I feel like the name just kind of like, I sat with it for a while and then I was like, yes, that's a perfect name. I love that name. But I just can't do it this time for some reason. I don't know. I feel like I might be having like trouble making decisions. And I feel like I've just had a lot of trouble recently making decisions, and I don't know if that's a pregnancy thing. If anyone has experienced that, let me know. But there's a lot of things, like I'm trying to like solidify the theme for my son's second birthday. And I changed my mind like probably 15 times. I don't know what it is about like making decisions in the like last couple months, but I just cannot. Like, I just have like so many doubts about all my decisions and thinking like, well, that's not good enough. I need something better. And it's like driving me a little bit crazy. So that's what's going on there. But when we have a name, we will share that with you guys. Hopefully it would be a few days before she's born, but it might be a few days after she's born. I don't know. But I think that's everything for this 34-week update. I would love to make another update for you guys next week, so hopefully I can make it that far. That would be great, because at this point, I really think that she would be fine to come out and hopefully have very minimal time in the NICU. This is about the time that the lungs start to get fully developed, so I think around 35 weeks, they're in pretty good shape, but it's just hard to tell, and I think it varies for each baby. So if we can make it to 35, 36, 37 weeks, I would feel a lot better about this whole situation. So hopefully at least another week, but another 3 weeks would be awesome. So definitely hit the subscribe button and hit the bell button if you have not already. If you would like to follow along with this journey, it doesn't have a whole lot left to it, but if you want to know how this goes for me, and also I will share postpartum updates and things like that, especially if you're interested in how C-sections go, because I feel like there's a lot of information about what to do for a vaginal delivery or how to handle it postpartum, but not as much about C-sections. So if you're interested in a video like that, definitely let me know, and I will try to share things that have been successful for me after I have this baby and go through all of that again, because there's a lot of things that it's like hard to remember that like first couple weeks. It's like hard to remember how it feels and like what products have like been really helpful. So I think when I have this refresher, then I can share some like really good tips and products with you guys. So I think I'm gonna end it here with a bump shot for you guys. I appreciate you watching this video. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.